So, hello everybody, and I want to welcome y'all to day 4 of our Tech Means Business series. And what we want to do is give you 2 weeks into the non-technical careers of this one-on-one series. So, greetings, family. My name is Dominique. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer here at MMC, and I want to thank you all for just taking the time to spend with us. Please drop some emojis. Tell us where you're from. Tell us what you're doing. This is a family oriented environment, and we really want y'all to feel at home. And again, like I said before, take a moment, just share and tag us on LinkedIn. Please follow through. Please watch. Invite a friend to invite a friend, as my CEO would say. And, we want you to really have a really good time here. This month, we're celebrating financial literacy with some of the best and greatest Black technologists. And we have a dope lineup. We have a really dope person tonight that I cannot wait to introduce you to. I see you, Chanel, tuning in from NYC. Hey, Melissa, I see you from South Carolina. Okay. So before we go on, I just want to know where you are in your journey. Are you in school, a boot camp, or are you self-learning? Are you applying for your first role, or are you growing and glowing in your career? But we want you to know wherever you are in the journey, the most important thing is you started. And we're here to help you and really guide you in your journey in any way we can. And one of those ways is through series like this. And guess what? We just launched our event hub right here. And we want you to go there. That has all our events, that will have everything that we have going on. And as we're dropping the link in there, bit.ly//MMC-hub. Really go over there, sign up for all the events, and take a look at it. We have so much dope content that's coming to you. And this is one of the events we have coming up from May 9th to May 13th. We're doing an event called Make Design Accessible in honor, or rather in alignment of Accessibility Month. Sorry, I was out of breath for a second. And so to register for that, again, go to bit.ly/MMC-hub and make sure that you sign up. We have a lot of dope people who are coming there. But that's not the only event we have, because we also have, and again, in alignment with Defying All Odds, we also want to talk about how all these technologies are making design accessible for everybody. And so we want to make sure that you're getting the most out of this, and you're getting a chance to really know all the dope people in these spaces and learn if you want to be in these spaces. So please, once again, register at bit.ly/MMC-hub. Oh, I see you. This is your first session. You missed the first week. That's okay. You know what? This is what we're here for. It's not when you start, it's that you started. We also have a remote week going on in Orlando, Florida. From May 29th to June 4th, you can register now at bit.ly/MMC-travel. That's our way of just introducing to the team. Really enjoying Florida, really taking the time out for ourselves to, travel and really get it together, as my CEO would say. We also have a referral zone, and I want you to take a look at all the companies we have up here. We have Microsoft, we have Zillow, Rosilia, Amazon, Apple. And what we're doing is we're trying to make sure that you have the best chance to get the interview for your dream job. To sign up for this, just go to bit.ly/MMC-refers. And please, we have a lot of dope companies here. We have a lot of people who are happy to refer you. We want to help you get these jobs and get these places. So please, please, please sign up for that. Oh, hi, Folek. Hi, nice to see you too. Again, I just gave you that, but once again, bit.ly/MMC-refers. And now, before we jump in, I want to take some time to introduce you to members of the team, how to get into our mentorships, our mentorship program, rather, how to opt into our text reminders, how to see our Etsy shop, lots of dope content there, and finally, what our Financial Literacy Month giveaway is. So, welcome. Why, yes, we actually have a YouTube channel. We'll put the link in there right now for your playlist, but you can come back and watch all sessions as we miss. But now back to this, me and the team. We have the lovely Chanel Power. We call her Miss Make It Happen. She's the reason why a lot of these events will go on. We have our CEO, who's Jovan Cameron, who does a lot of the day-to-day helping out with the back-end stuff. She also has a YouTube channel where she details her journey in tech. Please be sure to go check her out. And you have me, Dominique. I'm the Chief Strategy and Business Officer here, and my job is just to make sure y'all all having a collectively good time and that we're making sure we're giving you all the events and all the opportunities and resources. But that's not all. We also have our graphics designer, Sade, Kiara, who hosts some of our shows and events, and Sharika, who is our lifestyle content. And of course, if you want to join the team, visit bit.ly/MMC-team and select the volunteer inquiry with Javon. We love it here. We treat each other like family. We're really trying to serve the community here. And if that's a passion for yours, we would love to have you. But before we get into that, did someone say free career coaching? Because guess what, y'all? We're allowing people to sign for our mentorship program that's going live in Q3 of this year. Simply, if you want to be a mentee or a mentor, you go here and you will sign up using bit.ly/MMC mentee or bit.ly/MMC-mentor for any one of those. Anyone, again, having a mentor is such a cheat code. When I finally had one and was helping me, she was really helping me, guiding me and everything. It opened up so much for me, and we want to make sure we're doing the same for you all. Trust me, it's life-changing, and it's all for the Frizz naive. And so we want you to opt into our text reminders by texting MMC to 866-901-1914. And again, the only thing that we're going to ever do is text you about our giveaways and our events. We don't spam you. We don't do any of that. This is just to keep a reminder for you. And then, of course, you can visit our Etsy shop. We're going to drop the link for it down here. And so that has a lot of the stuff that we know. We have a lot of dope content. We have a lot of designs. We have a lot of things just for sale. So please just give. They does an excellent job of designing. You will see a lot of pieces that you like. But what's an MMC event without a MMC giveaway? That's right, y'all. We try to do these giveaway at least once every 2 weeks or so. When we're doing sessions like these, we really want to make sure that y'all soaking in information and that y'all are taking the time to really, pay attention and get in your career choice. And it's really easy. Attend all the sessions, bring a friend if you can, grab your pen and notebook, take notes, connect with us on social media, and finally, completing our online quiz. And this is just a couple of other steps. We really want you to use our photo book. We have a lot of good filters on there, a lot of beautiful pictures. You just take your phone right here, you scan the QR code, and it'll come up automatically. Again, take notes and complete our online quiz. Visit our Instagram and try to tag at least 3 of your friends. And finally, text MMC to 866-901-1914. And these are just some of the filters we had. My lovely CEO. We actually had, a couple of community members also take photos. And then there's me, looking suave just a little bit. And here again, I'm going to take a moment and leave it here. You can also go to https://bit.ly/MMC-TMB. And that will help you with the selfie. And also, we're posting that in the comment section below. And these are just some of the prize giveaways. We have Apple AirTags. Those recently came out. They look dope as hell. We have a HomePod Mini. We have a Hydrate water bottle and a Nanoleaf smart light bulb. Again, a lot of prizes here, and they're free. Why not? Take 5 seconds off your day to answer some questions and win one of these lovely prizes. But y'all didn't come to hear me ramble on and talk. So I want to bring the woman of the hour who y'all really came here to see, who's going to teach us a lot about program management. I want you to give it up for Miss Yawande. Hey, Yawande, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Can you see and hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
All right, great. Yes. Hi.
All right. So we want you to take the time to introduce yourself. I'm going to take myself off stage because the people came here for you. Cannot wait to hear all the content that you're bringing.
Sure. Well, hi everyone. I can't see anyone, but my name is Yonde Marquez. I am a program manager in commerce integrity operations at Meta. I am originally from Nigeria, so I moved to the US about 7 years ago. My background is in economics and technology project management, and then I have some experience in consulting, experience in finance, healthcare, education. I've kind of been all over the place trying to figure out my path in life, but thankfully I made it over to the tech side, and I think I'm finally in a place where I'm doing what I should be doing, and that gives me a lot of peace. And So that's a bit about myself, career wise. Outside of work, I like to travel. I'm just like every regular person. I like to travel. I like to hang out with my friends. I like to plan events. I like organizing stuff, which is why I think I'm a good program manager. I like organizing stuff, bringing people together, and then yeah, I just like to have a good time. So I'm excited to be here, excited to share some more about program management, and then we'll be I'm eager to see like what questions you all have and how I can answer your questions. Am I good, Dom? All right. I guess I could share a little bit more about myself in addition to what I just shared earlier. So I did talk about my experience in consulting. So undergrad economics, decided I wanted to go get a second degree in economics. Halfway through the program, realized that was not for me. Ended up going to technology, and then thankfully, after grad school, got my first job in consulting, which was where I was working with public sector clients to deliver what we call large scale enterprise transformations, essentially helping them design supply chain finance solutions using SAP. And then I did that for about 3.5 years, decided it was time to leave, try something new, and then I moved over to my current role. I've been here for almost a year. So what I do is, as a program manager, I work within Facebook Commerce, and then I essentially work across multiple cross-functional partners, helping to design our commerce enforcement strategy across like Facebook Shops, Marketplace, all of our commerce components on the Facebook and Instagram family of apps. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself. All right, so introductions. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to do in today's session is I'm kind of trying to go. I'm going to try to go through the fundamentals. So I'll go through like some basic terminologies that you probably hear like often. You hear about project, program, but then a lot of people probably wonder like how is project management different from program management and then product management. So I'm going to try to go through that, and then I would go through like who is a program manager, what should a program manager do, how do I apply to program management roles, and then we'll wrap up with like how to transition into program management. So we'll talk about like the different types of backgrounds, so to speak, that one needs, and then typical requirements that we see in the industry for tech. We could stay on the other side. All right, so basics. So a project this is all PMI definition. So PMI is Project Management International. So project is what a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product or service. A project is typically like I need to execute something within a particular time frame. I need to get it done based on certain constraints, and I launch, and that's the end of the project. So it typically has a defined end and a defined end. It has a set timeline. Now, a program is like a set of projects. So as a program manager, you would typically be required to work on like multiple projects, balancing competing priorities. Versus as a project manager, you're responsible for the end-to-end execution of one project, and then once that project is done, you begin another project. When you're a program manager, you get to oversee multiple projects that have different timelines, different constraints, different stakeholders. So you get to balance all. And then when we talk about portfolio is a set of projects and programs. So if you think about it, it's like project, program, portfolio. And portfolio is typically like the biggest of like the scale. Next slide, please. All right. So I wanted to highlight like the difference between project management, program management, and product management, because I think this is also something I wasn't entirely clear on, because I used to think I was a project manager. That's kind of what I did before consulting. And then when I was in consulting, I kind of stepped into a pseudo program management role without even realizing. But I, at some point, confused that for product management, where product management is different. So I will start from product management. I think that's probably like the easiest to relate with. When you think of like Instagram or you think of like Pinterest, like typical apps that you have on your phone, that's a product. When you think of like your iMessage, that's defined as a product. So a product manager is essentially responsible for defining how that product is like the overall product strategy. Product strategy then informs how that product is launched into the market, the go-to-market strategy, how it's designed, who it's marketed to. So the product manager is responsible for like assessing the market, keeping like in tabs with like what's going on in the market, like the new trends, and then how do we define our product? Like how is our product going to be uniquely positioned to compete in this market, and how do we like push it? How do we go to market? That's the product manager's role. And then end to end, from when the product is like conceptualized, designed, like the code is like build tested, the product manager is accountable like throughout the end-to-end life cycle, while also collaborating with like the different POCs who are responsible for making all of that happen. That's the product manager. Now, the program manager would typically work in that space as well, but the product manager is essentially responsible for executing on the strategy, the product strategy. So then there would be projects that will come out of that, like product. So if we stick with the example of iMessage, right? We're trying to roll out a feature to be able to add like lists to iMessage. I know that does not exist today, but that would be a nice, cool feature if you're like if you have like a group chat with your friends and you can just like have like a list, and if you guys are like planning a trip, you could just check stuff off of you, or if you have like roommates or like your partner, you're like trying to go grocery shopping, and you could just like write stuff on the list and check it off. So that's like a feature that we want to launch. Product manager is responsible for defining how we're going to like end to end like launch that. Where do we see this feature growing in the next few years? The program manager is then responsible for creating like different like projects off of that. So one project could be like, we need to like test this, we need to map out the design, we need to like test it out, we need to work with a group of engineers to like come up with like an MVP. We need to determine like our market, like who, like where we're gonna like start testing from. So if we decide we're gonna start with a small group in Chicago, then the program manager is responsible for working with like the product designer. The product designer is who's going to design like, this is what the feature should look like. There's a content designer, there's a user researcher who's telling us what the market wants. And then there are essentially a bunch of projects that stem off of that product strategy, and the program manager is responsible for coordinating all of those different projects. So then there could be multiple programs from that. And then there's a project manager who's then responsible for each individual project. So I talked about like user research, I talked about having to design an MVP, I talked about the content design. So all of those could be seen as individual projects, and each of them are managed by like a project manager. A program manager oversees like all of the different projects, and then the product manager is responsible for like the overall product strategy. Hoping that makes sense so far. Yes, there are differences. Next slide, please. And the next slide, please. All right, so who is a program manager? I've kind of talked about this already. A program manager oversees activities across multiple projects, and then they apply like their knowledge, they use tools to be able to achieve like the goals and ultimately deliver like successful program outcomes. So as you can see in this infographic here, the program manager evaluates the portfolio, essentially like looks at like the strategy. They're responsible for either designing the operating model or refining the operating model, managing risks. They really engage with stakeholders, making sure that stakeholders are kept accountable and kept updated throughout the execution of the projects, and then they essentially run the program. That means like having meetings with like your stakeholders, having meetings with your individual project managers, essentially like being like that core point of contact or single-threaded owner throughout like throughout the end-to-end execution of all of the different projects. So what are some typical behaviors of a program manager? A program manager is someone who's like, I see a program manager as like a big picture thinker. So you think beyond just short term, you're able to envision outcomes, and then you can work your way backwards. So you're able to see like, where are we trying to go? Especially when you're working with like a big group of people, sometimes everyone's trying to go in like different directions. As a program manager, it's your job or your responsibility to be able to like see the big picture and then help everyone else see the big picture. So you need to be able to envision like the outcomes, the long-term goal, and then work your way backwards. So if you're trying to come up with a 6-month plan or 1-year plan for your program, you need to think of where would we ideally want to be at the end of this period, and then what are the steps we need to take to get there, and be able to clearly outline that for yourself and for the rest of like your team. So that also requires you to be very organized in the way that you organize your information, in the way that you structure your information, and in the way that you are also present that information to the people you interact with. It requires you to be like analytical, a good problem solver. You also have to be like really quick on your feet, because sometimes things move pretty fast. Imagine you're balancing like multiple projects. You need to be able to think of like all the different things going on across the board and be able to like essentially, like if you need to pivot, like think of the strategy. You need to be able to like think about that. So you need to be able to be highly analytical. Then also a very key, very important part of being a program manager is relationship building. So you don't work in isolation. All of your success is dependent on the success of the team, and the success of your program is dependent on the success of all of the individual projects within your program. So that means you need to be able to have excellent relationships with the people who are actually delivering this project. So you need to be a great team builder, because sometimes morale is low on the team. So it's also the goal of the program manager to be able to like get the team focused, aligned on the goal, and keep them moving towards that goal. You need to be able to like build those new relationships, maintain the existing relationships, because relationship is currency. Like we need relationships to be able to get by in the world. So you, as a program manager, that's like a very key part of your job. And also be able to like lead other people, influence outcomes, because sometimes, like I mentioned earlier, like everyone has their idea of how things should be. As a program manager, you're that one person who's like, this is the strategy. You need to be able to like get people to see that goal and be able to influence things in the way that you think is in the direction of the goal that you're working towards. And that also means sometimes there would be conflict in the team. You need to be highly diplomatic. You need to be like someone who can be like in the middle to be able to like resolve conflict and get things done. Especially like in the workplace, there's always going to be conflict. There are different personalities, different people from all sorts of backgrounds. So you need to be able to wade through that and build those relationships, resolve conflicts, and just be able to like lead and negotiate, so that way the work gets done and we can move on. So that requires some form of creativity as well, and also excellent planning skills. Next slide, please. So, what are some types of program managers? I think the way I see this, I bucket program managers into like either you're a general program manager where you kind of don't really have a domain expertise, or you don't necessarily have expertise in one particular industry, or you're domain specific. So maybe you have expertise in like a particular industry or in a particular area. So you could either be in any of those two buckets. For me, I'm more on the general side. I just never had like I mentioned in my intro, kind of being everywhere. So just never had like a strong expertise in one area. So in my role, I'm like a business operations program manager, and then you could also be a technology program manager, which means you could be in any area that has to do with technology, and then you may or may not have a focus, as long as you understand like the basics and the rudiments of like what the role requires. That's good. Versus if you are domain specific, so if you're like a privacy program manager, then that would require that you'll have the understanding of like the privacy rules, privacy laws, maybe even be certified in that particular area, so that way your programs are all going to be related to privacy. In my current role, I like my domain is like commerce, but I don't necessarily have an e-commerce background. It's a nice to have, it wasn't a must have for me. And I don't also like have a domain focus, but I work with people who are like infra program managers, or who are like privacy program managers. So when we need like privacy approvals, or we need to be able to get like we need to vet something and we need to get a privacy check, then I go to my privacy program manager. If I need to get a risk assessment, I go to my risk program manager, and they coordinate on their side. But at a high level, I'm coordinating across all of these groups of people, which is why I'm like more on the general side. Hope that makes sense. All right, next slide. Next slide, please. All right, so let's talk some more about transitioning into program management. I think this is probably what a lot of people want to hear. So one question I get a lot is like, do I need to have a certification? I would say it depends. It depends on your role. It depends on like your background. For me, I got certifications. I didn't necessarily find them super helpful in like my application experience, but it's not like I don't see it as a must-have. Like I wouldn't say like I need to get a project management. I wouldn't say I need to get a PMP certification before I can prove that I'm a project manager. I think what counts more is your experience. So I think I would say when you're applying, it's more about how you highlight your experience and position yourself for the role. And the certifications are really just like add-ons. and they would just help like buttress your case. But in any case, if you were going to get certified, program project management related certifications, which are kind of industry agnostic, PMP obviously is like the golden standard. A lot of people have the PMP certification. I took it last year. It's not super difficult. It feels intimidating, but it's not difficult. And there are a lot of boot camps and just classes online, even on YouTube, that can help you prepare for that. There are also the Scrum Master certifications. So these are more relevant if you're going to be working in an agile environment or if you have experience from working in an agile environment. So I didn't spell some of this out because I did not have the space. But I'm hoping that if people are not familiar with this, then you can Google. But CSM is the Certified Scrum Master, CSPO is Certified Product Owner, and then PSM is like a Professional Scrum Master. So these are all like Scrum Master certifications that you can choose to get. As far as I know, they're not like super expensive, all less than 1,000. Some of them are less than $500. They do require like some form of like renewal every 3 to 5 years, where you need to take like professional development classes, but not super difficult to renew your certifications. Now, when we talk about domain specific certifications, this I would recommend if you're in an area that has like that's more expertise based. So if you're trying to go into cloud computing, or maybe you've worked in cloud, or maybe you're interested in the cloud, but you don't necessarily like want to actually configure. You don't necessarily want to be a cloud engineer. You could be a cloud program manager. So it would be nice to have an understanding of the cloud platform, so that way you can be an effective program manager. However, you don't necessarily need to you don't need the certification just for you to be able to be a cloud engineer, if that makes sense. So for instance, if you a lot of people talk about AWS, which is Amazon Web Services, or GCP is Google Cloud Professional, and then Azure is like Microsoft's cloud service. So if you have a particular interest in either one, some people do all. Some people choose one and just grow in that path. So they just choose like the AWS path and just go that path. Then it would be helpful to just say, if you're trying to go in cloud, you have that experience, you want to be on the program management side, then definitely like try to get one of those certifications. And then if you're risk, I've just included some examples here. This is obviously not an exhaustive list. If you're a risk, then there are like risk-based certifications as well that would definitely help to build your credence as a program manager. So I'm saying all this because in the domain specific like areas, you're doing a lot of work that's more tailored to a particular area versus being general. So obviously you need to be able to prove that you have that expertise in that area, which is where the certifications come in. And then the last example here is HR, which these are like two different HR certifications I found when I was doing research. So they are HR program managers as well. And then in terms of like the tools and systems that you use, as a general project manager, you would typically use like project management tools. So Google Docs is like one, like the Google suite of services is one, or Microsoft suite of services. You would use a lot of Excel, a lot of documents, so Word or Google Docs, PowerPoints. Beyond that, then you would have like Microsoft Project, things like Visio. Visio is good to like help to design like flow charts and maps. Asana is like another like cloud-based project management tool. There's Jira, Rally, depending on your industry. You would use some of these. Like I've only used Microsoft Project, Visio, and Jira and Asana on this list. And they're not things I use in my day to day. I use more Google Docs than Google Sheets. So it just depends on your role and on your team. But having a knowledge of what they do would be helpful. And then going back to domain specific tools, the tools here are all like analytical tools. So when you talk about SQL, Python, R, Tableau, Power BI, they're like data analytical, data science, data visualization tools. So SQL is more like for querying, for you to be able to like pull data from a database. Python, R are more like coding, data science type tools, and then Tableau, Power BI are like data visualization tools. Now, you need to be able to make a case if you're trying to like design a strategy or make a case for like your program. If you want a new project that you think should be done, if you need to make a business case or a presentation to stakeholders, then being able to like have the data to back that up is very helpful. And depending on where you work, you may be able to rely on like your data analyst or data scientists or software engineers to get this information for you, or you could also just do it by yourself. So it's easier if you know how to do it yourself. And a lot of roles I've seen actually require some like experience in any of these tools. And if you're someone who doesn't come from like a traditional tech, computer science background, do not be intimidated. It's simple. I have YouTube videos that are like 3 hours long, and if you are patient enough and give it like 2 days, you can get through the video and you actually learn the basics. And really, all you need to learn are the basics. You just need the basics. Like I promise you, in your day-to-day job, you're probably not going to be doing a whole lot of this. It's just enough for you to be able to communicate with like the more technical people on your team, and enough for you to be able to like also defend the technical aspects of your of the projects that you're working on. So having the knowledge is helpful. And I definitely recommend like if you can like invest time in learning some of these skills and tools, and you don't have to learn all. Just pick one. Try to practice SQL or pick Python. Just pick one that you know that you can learn, start from the basics, and then grow in. And obviously, over time, you would be surprised at how much you eventually know and grow and can do. So yeah, next slide. All right, so what I wanted to do here was just show like what we're seeing in the industry in terms of job requirements, because I've talked about like behaviors, I've talked about who a program manager is, I've talked about like how to be a program manager, but what exactly are some requirements? So I've seen like definitely a bachelor's degree, especially in the tech world. Having a bachelor's degree is helpful, not necessarily in any particular kind of field. I found, especially for more experienced professionals, the experience is what counts. The experience counts more than your educational background. So you could have like a background in liberal arts, social sciences, business, information technology, engineering. I think that just determines like the kind of program manager role you would go for. If you have a background in engineering and you worked as an engineer, you may be more inclined to go for like a technical program manager role, versus if you have a background in liberal arts or business, then you may be more inclined to go for a more general role, depending on like what your background and expertise is in. So I've seen like for the most part, it requires a bachelor's degree and then at least 3 years of experience in like a relevant field. And field is relative; it's all relative to like the role. And then I've seen that it's nice to have an advanced degree. It's required for some roles. It's not like a hard requirement. And typically in the roles, you would see that you would see it as a requirement for an advanced degree. So I have six positions on the slide. So there's roles from Google, Oracle, Pinterest, Uber, and Expedia. So I try to get roles that were at different levels and then also different like backgrounds, because I've had people who would ask me like, "Oh, I work in healthcare. I have a healthcare background. Could I work as a program manager?" Like, absolutely. You can see from Google, they have program manager health compliance. And going back to like the preferred qualifications, you can see certification in healthcare privacy. So that goes back to my point earlier about like domain specific expertise. In this particular case, I wouldn't be a program manager for health compliance because I don't have healthcare experience. However, someone who has healthcare experience and then specifically healthcare privacy experience would be a great fit for this role. So obviously there are parallels for you to be able to transition. And what I always tell people is like going into program management, as long as you enjoy like certain aspects of the role, which I will talk about shortly, you really can do it. It's more about like being able to be highlight like the transferable skills from what you do today, which would be like communicating with like your stakeholders, your communication skills, problem solving skills, highlighting all of that in your interview and letting that come through in your resume as well. And then the rest of your experience just takes care of the rest of it. So going back to this slide, there's a design program manager role. I'm starting from the right if you're trying to follow me. There's a design program manager role, and this is someone who has experience more with like product design or like content design. So the requirements there are very specific. So again, this is another one I wouldn't be able to qualify for because I don't have that experience. So you may have worked as like a content designer in your past life, or a product designer, or a web designer, and you're like, oh, I'm kind of tired of doing this. I kind of want to transition into something else and go into tech. Well, this is a perfect role for you because you wouldn't be doing like the end-to-end day-to-day design, but you're collaborating with like people who are doing that, and you know it well enough for you to be able to like effectively manage the program and even like drive the strategy. And then there's another one here that's product equity. This is more related to like diversity and like inclusion and equity. So like the preferred qualifications are experience in diversity, equity and inclusion or accessibility. So this is perfect for someone who's maybe done something else in their life, but has kind of worked in this space. Maybe you work in like the nonprofit, public sector space, and you're like, oh, I want to go into tech. This is like a perfect role because you have the experience, and it would be more about being able to like learn some more of like the technical aspects of the role, which are like some of those skills I highlighted on the previous slide. So the roles on the right are like kind of like very specific. The ones on the left are kind of more general. So the Amazon role, this is more like a senior program manager role. So they're looking for like 5+ years of experience. But like going back to what I said, the the advanced degree is preferred, but it's not a must have. Just have a bachelor's degree. And then this looks to be like someone who has like experience in business operations. So I would say anyone who's worked in like social sciences, business, and like a typical, like even like in a bank, just something that has like operations, an operational aspect to your role. This is like perfect for you. And then the Oracle one is more customer engagement and insight. So I think this is more someone that has like a background in like consulting, sales, and this is more a more senior role. And then same thing for the technical program manager at Expedia. I think that just requires someone who has like a technical background. I'm going to preface this again by saying that I started my when I was giving my intro, I said my background is in economics. I didn't know anything technical until I joined Deloitte, and I learned from all the people that I worked with. And then I could apply for like technical roles. So all of my exposure was from the job. So like I would be able to apply for this technical program manager role because I am familiar with like agile and like the SDLC life cycle. But that's not something that you cannot learn. Like you can definitely learn it. And if you're looking for opportunities to learn and practice what you've learned, then I would say seek out like volunteer opportunities or opportunities with like places like the Mentor Me Collective, people who are like just trying to do things, and where you actually have the opportunity to like practice those things that you've learned. And it could be like someone who's trying to build an app, or someone who has an app but they're trying to find ways to like market it, just things that are related to like what you want to do and what you want to like actually practice. That's if you don't have like that specific experience. So I hope this slide was helpful just to get a sense of what the market is saying and like how to kind of position yourself, or even just what kind of roles that you could apply for. All right, so all said, how do you know if program management is a good fit for you? Because quite frankly, it's not for everybody. Like I've worked with people who like tell me like, I don't know how you do what you do. I couldn't do it. And I'm like, I don't know how you do your job too, because I couldn't be an engineer. So it just depends. I love what I do because it's very aligned with like my personality and just who I am. But for some people, they just want to get their work done and go home. They don't want to think about anybody else. They don't want to think about like the strategy. They just want to do their work and go. So for you, how do you know if it's a good fit? Do you enjoy strategy? Do you enjoy drawing up plans for others to follow? If you do, then maybe it's a good fit for you. Maybe you like to come up with a plan and let others execute, which is good too. So maybe you never know. And then you're a big picture thinker. For me, I think I always think of the big picture. I struggle to think of like the little details because I just always see the big picture, which is why I know that it's something that I would enjoy. So it may be a good fit for you if you think of the big picture, you like to think of the long term, and but beyond that, you also need to be able to translate that to the day to day, and you can help other people like see the vision, but like, hey, this is how we're gonna do it too, which goes back to like being able to plan. And then you're thrilled by the idea of working on multiple initiatives. So as a program manager, you're never gonna be doing just one thing. You have to balance like multiple priorities. You have to balance like multiple stakeholders. Sometimes it gets exhausting because it's like there's so many opinions and there's so many things to keep track of. But you also need to be you also need to be thrilled by that idea. There are people who like they can't sit still. They have to do multiple things. So if that's you, then definitely you may be a good fit for this. And then you also enjoy building relationships, you enjoy influencing people, you enjoy working with people. Some people don't like people, and there's nothing wrong with that. Where some people may be introverts, extroverts. You don't necessarily have to be either or to be a good program manager. Just enjoy like talking to people, actually like building relationships, because I find that being able to build genuine, authentic relationships goes a long way, especially in your career, and not just in your career, just in life in general. Also, being able to actually like just see people for who they are and use your relationship building skills to influence situations in your favor. That always helps. And then you are able to thrive in ambiguity, especially in the tech world. I found that there is a lot of ambiguity. Not everything is always clear, and things are constantly evolving. So you have to be able to thrive in that. Like sometimes you come up with a strategy 6 month long or 3 year long, and then something happens, a new regulation comes up, a PR scandal. You have to kind of pivot and you know change direction. And then sometimes things are unclear for a period of time. So you need to be able to just be able to thrive through that and also like help your team get through that as well. And then lastly, I would say you are comfortable with the idea of the team success being your success, because a lot of times you're not necessarily responsible for the day to day. You're like more of the high level. So you may not necessarily get the success or get the credit. The team gets the credit, but be comfortable with that because it's all teamwork at the end of the day. And then next slide, please. All right, so how do I position myself to be a program manager? I would say there's several different things you could do. One great way is coffee chats. So coffee chat could be an in-person coffee chat, or let's reach out to someone and ask for some time to talk. It's very easy to romanticize like how things are done in a particular space. A lot of people want to come over to tech. I was like, I want to work in tech, but do you know why? Do you know what you want to do? So a great way to do this is just reach out to people, talk to them, and say, hey, tell me more about like your role. Tell me more about what you do. And over time, you get to learn more about like those particular areas that you're thinking of going into, and you get to know if it's a good fit or not. Like if you attend this session and you've heard some of the things I've said, you may feel like, oh, program management may not be a, a good fit for me, but you may set up time with me and I tell you some elements about my role and you're like, oh, actually like some things that you're saying. So it just depends. But the only way to know is really by talking to people. So if you're shy or if you're like feel like you're wasting people's time, to just get over that fear and just like reach out to people. Some people will respond, some people will not respond, but it's all part of like the journey of like learning and growing. And then upskilling, that's the second point. I can talk about how you can upskill in the presentation. So you can choose to um like get certifications, sharpen your skills. I would just say like the industry is like constantly evolving. So you definitely want to stay current, you want to stay relevant, and that just means like keeping in touch with like what's going on and just making sure that your skills are at par with like other people who are also like applying to these jobs. Third thing is like network. You can network your way to an interview. This is something that I've done a lot. You can use like your LinkedIn connections. Going back to like the first point, reach out to people, like ask for some time to talk. Just like leverage your connections, leverage your community, leverage the people around you to get what you want. Like, you use your alumni group, like your school alumni group, and just look for people. That can always be like that's always like a good middle point or a good like connection point to say, hey, we went to the same school. Can I get some time with you to talk? So use your alumni group. I highlighted like some like meetup is like a great way in your particular city. If you're trying to be like trying to get into tech or like a particular field, just look for like a meetup group in your environment and just like go talk to people. PMI is Project Management Institute. So if you've gotten a certification from PMI, then you probably are already a member, and they have local chapters across like the country. So go to like one of those networking events and just talk to people. And then lastly, I included NSB, which is National Society for Black Engineers, for people who are engineers. And then there's also like Society for Women Engineers. They're just like professional development, like groups or companies or organizations like this, National Society for like Black MBAs. So look for like a professionals component and just like go to like one or two of their meetings in your city and just see how you can talk to people. The fourth thing is apply, apply, apply. Don't get discouraged by the rejections. Just keep your eyes focused on the goal and what you're trying to get to, where you want to be, and eventually you get a great offer, one that would be great and one that you would be able to accept. So just keep applying. And then the fifth point, which is very, very important, is just your branding. Like, how do you come across? Like, I always recommend that people tailor their resumes to like the roles that they're applying for, just so that it comes off like you're a good fit. Like we looked at like some of those different program manager examples. If I was going to apply for a technical program manager role, but I have a resume that pictures me more as like a business consultant, then whoever sees my resume may not necessarily think I'm a great fit. So it's just about like making sure I put like certain keywords there that would make me stand out to the recruiter or to like the ATS system, which is the automated tracking system. And then your online image, I think, is also important. So have a LinkedIn profile, make sure it's up to date, make sure that it's current, especially, and it represents like some of your best work, represents like what you're doing at work. And you could also position in a way like if you're trying to get into tech, you highlight more of like the tech elements of your of your current role, or like program management, you highlight more of like the program management aspects of your role, but just make sure that your profile is updated, such that like you never know who's looking at your profile, you never know like who's going to reach out for some time to talk. Recruiters are constantly like looking through profiles, looking for people who they can like request for interviews from. So I would say that's a great way of just making sure that even if beyond applying, make sure your resume is consistent and your online image is consistent, such that like one day someone just slides into your DM and that leads into a whole interview that you didn't even plan for. Next slide. I guess the end. All right, thank you. If anyone wants to connect with me afterwards, you can find me on LinkedIn. My first name is Yawandi, my last name is Marquez. And thank you for listening. I hope this has been helpful. I'd love to hear your questions.
Oh yes, you did an amazing job, sensational. We love to see it. You gave a lot of information, and you kind of taught me the difference between project, program, and product. 'Cause I kind of had an idea of project management, and now I have a better idea of program management. But you really laid it down for our audience. Like I'm even seeing comments talking about just how you made it concise and easy for them. And
Awesome.
so, you know, oh, we do have somebody here. Lakila Avery says, I'm a program manager at a higher educational setting and looking to transition into a corporate slash technical company setting. I would love to get some advice or mentorship to help the transition.
Hmm. I'm thinking looking to
Oh, take your
transition
time.
into a corporate, a technical company setting. I guess as what though? Like, I guess maybe as a program manager. Um, so I would say things that come to mind here are some of the things I already covered earlier. Finding people with like education backgrounds, and talking to them to learn more about what they do. I guess also like if you're attending the session, that means you kind of want to transition as a program manager. So, but that may not be all that you could do. Like I work with people who have backgrounds in like theater, or like they worked as like professors or researchers for a long time, but then they don't necessarily work as program managers. Maybe they work as like a user researcher, or they work as like a data analyst or something. So it just depends on the particular role. But if we stick with like the assumption that it's program manager, okay, yeah. So if it's program management, I would say like try to like talk to people who try to find people like within like maybe who were like the setting the school that you've worked at before, who are maybe who transitioned to like the corporate side, and just get a sense of like the paths that they took. Because um being a program manager, you could be like an education program manager. That's something that you want, that's something you want to do. If you could just be like a general operations program manager. If you want to be an education program manager, what that could mean is that you would be working with like maybe like a Google or even a Meta, that people that have like partnerships with like universities or like college programs, and helping them design like what that should look like, come up with the strategies and executing on that, partnering with some of these schools. So that could be something you could look into. um I would also say like try to highlight the parts of your role that relate to program management. So as being working in higher education, let's say if I assume that you work as a professor, I'm not sure if that's correct, but just taking that example, you would have to like sit down at some point to think of, okay, what do I like, what am I teaching? Like how do I come up with my curriculum for the semester? How do I like lay out like my grades, like my grading scale? How do I lay out like when I'm gonna test, like all of that. That's all strategy. So you're responsible for coming up with like the strategy and end to end strategy of like the education curriculum for like a particular semester, and then executing, which is delivering the instructions to like your students. That's just an example. I'm not sure if you're a professor, but it's being able to highlight like some of those things that you've done that relate to like what a core program manager would do, that demonstrates that you can be an effective program manager, and then taking it from there. But I would say your first step is really trying to find people who have taken a similar path, and then just seeing like what they did and what worked for them.
Thank you so much for that. So now we have another question. Isabella asks, Hi, Yawande. What would you say are the most challenging parts of your day today?
Yeah. It's working with so many different people and trying to balance all of the different perspectives, and trying to find consensus. I would say that's where it gets really tough, because like I work in a product based company, and like I work with a lot of engineers, and they always want their way. They always want their way. They want things to be done in a particular way. But then that's not the only perspective. Like I have my operations team who's bringing an operations perspective, and then I have the design team who's bringing the design perspective, and then I have the data science team who's bringing their perspective. So it's trying to like hear everyone out, which like all points are valid, but then also like being able to like balance like the different perspectives and then find consensus, which is where I say is like it's very challenging because you work with different personalities and you have to kind of like tailor your conversations based on personalities. If I'm working with someone who's like, if I'm going to talk with someone who's like very aggressive, I need to like come ready to be aggressive as well, just be so that way I can get my message across. But if I'm working with someone who's like very like just goes round and round and round in circles, I need to be very like strict in my conversation with them. Like, hey, like just not be afraid of like cutting them off, so to speak, just so that I can get my point across and just so that they can hear. And sometimes it means like having to like escalate to like managers or people who can help me like pass the message across when the message is not getting passed across in the way that I'm communicating. So it's just, I would say it's really challenging to balance all of those different perspectives and then find consensus.
Mm, very detailed, and I can see how hard that is. So then, a question I have for you was, what's the biggest or the rather the best career advice you've gotten as a program manager?
Well, that's a tough one. Um, it's kind of hard to pick the best advice. One advice I would say I've been given is just like trust the process. And when you say trust the process, it's like it seems cliche, but like I've been through several like phases of like I planned something and then at the end of the execution, like it's like so far from where I planned. But the fact is like the goal was still achieved. It just was in a different way. And maybe I was thinking of like, oh, maybe I'm not going to get recognized for something, or maybe I didn't communicate the right way to someone. Maybe I pissed someone off. Just they're just different worries that come to you naturally. And
Mm,
trusting the process is just like trust that in the end it will all be fine. Like yeah, you may have like pissed them off, but like hey, we achieved our goal, and maybe they actually didn't like take it the way you thought that they took it. So maybe like have a conversation with them, but trust that at the end of it all, like it's all going to work out fine, and I'm still going to learn from it. I would say the other piece of advice that I've always like tried to carry in the back of my mind is just like just see yourself as a leader and just act like a leader. And I struggle with that because like I didn't necessarily I've just never really found myself in a lot of leadership positions. So I'm like, I'm used to like people telling me what to do. But when the roles are reversed and I tell people what to do, then it gets really uncomfortable. And like I had one of my managers tell me, like, I see you as a leader, so I need you to like see yourself as a leader and then act like a leader, which also it also affects like what they call like your executive presence. Because when you come to a room like someone who like identifies as a leader, that affects like the way you communicate with the people in your meetings. That affects how you share your perspective. So I think that's something that I try to carry in the back of my mind, especially when I'm in meetings where like I don't understand half of what they're saying, but I still have to say something. Like being able to like come up with that gravitas and like yes, like just give my opinion that way, and not because I'm trying to like fake it, but like just genuinely that's how I feel. That's what I see myself as, and that helps me just be more confident, and even like the way I communicate, the way I deliver like information, it just helps me in my overall confidence, that and also like in my ability to be able to do my job.
excellent answer. So then we have another question now. They're really coming with it. What would career growth look like in your current role? What is the next step for you if you wanted to move up, so to speak?
It's a great question. I would say in my current role, in my current company, career growth looks like just growing as an individual contributor. So I could either be an IC, which is an individual contributor, or I could be a manager. So what that just means is I grow as a program manager, and that means like I'm growing from where I'm executing on multiple projects right now to now like looking beyond how do I get more scope for my team. So I'm working with like a predetermined, a kind of like a predetermined scope where like leadership has said, okay, this is what you're going to work on. But beyond like where I am, I start to look around the company and say, hey, there I'm finding teams that have like a similar strategy to what we're doing, and then trying to like strike up conversations with those teams, and then getting it from the point of conversation to the point where they're willing to come on board and give my team scope. So that means I've delivered new scope for my team. I've delivered additional work. So that means someone else, maybe a new person would need to be hired to fill in that role. So that means I'm adding value to to the company. I'm contributing to, like, I'm directly contributing to the bottom line. Um, and then so that's one way where I see I'm able to like grow. To be quite honest with you, like in my current company, it's not very defined, and it's very specific to like what you do and your team. So based on like my team, I would work with my manager to define like, okay, what does the next level look like? It's not like a generic, this is what the growth would look like. But however, in my specific case, it would just be like moving from a place where I'm like working with the parameters that were delivered to me to now like defining what additional parameters should look like, not just for me, but for the team, for new program managers. So kind of like setting a new direction of where like people should go, and being able to like lead the way of, I've set the direction, now here's how we go, and driving execution in that way. So I've like I'm not just like doing my day to day, but I'm more of like a visionary and helping the company grow. So hopefully that answers your question.
I believe it. This you gave a lot of good information, and so somebody asked, I found out program management won't be right for me because I'm very introverted and want a break from heavy relationship building. Do you know tech roles that are good for introverts that doesn't involve coding and work mostly behind the scenes?
I'm trying to think. Data is a good one that comes to mind. Doesn't involve coding. Okay, I take that back. Um, Sales comes to mind, but then you will have to like talk to a lot of people. Mm, and then I was gonna say program management, but but clearly not. I'm trying to think of like some people I work with. A lot of the roles I know are like they do require like a very heavy interface with like people. If you like designing, then maybe you could try like product content design or like user research. Because that's something like being a UX researcher. So if you have a background in like knowing how to do research, it doesn't require like heavy coding, but a lot of what you would do is like do surveys or do like one-on-ones with like maybe customers, clients, just to get a sense of like what they feel about the product. But you don't have to build that relationship because it's just like a one-off. So UX research could be one, and then things that have to do with design. So like UI UX design, because they don't typically involve coding. It's just more of like, I mean, there's HTML and CSS, but they're not like, I wouldn't see them as like pure coding. It's more of like understanding like the process. But I had to think on that one. See if I can think of something more.
Well, make sure you connect with her so that she can, answer these questions for you, Samaya. But the last questions of the night goes to Miss Lindsay, and it goes: does anyone have examples of the same resume customized for different roles? I feel like I struggle enough with perfecting the basic resume, so the idea of customizing is just beyond me sometimes.
Um, I don't have an example. It looks to me like that's more of an open question. I don't have any resume. I have a friend who's a career coach, so I can reach out to her to see if she has something, and I could and Lindsay, if you want to connect with me after, see if I can put you guys in touch.
There's your answer, and so please make sure she put her LinkedIn on there. Her name is Yawande Marquise. Make sure that you're connecting with her. She was really dope tonight. She gave us a lot of information just from program management, and we're very thankful to have her here with us. And it seems like, we're getting ready to come to close. So I want to say again, thank you, Yawande, for coming here. Thank you for giving us the resource of your time. That's the one thing we don't get back. So you took the time to really come and give the audience a lot of good information, and they were very receptive. So I want to say thanks to you. Thanks to the audience. Thanks just for everybody for taking the time out on this Thursday night to come here.
Thank you for having me. I
Of
appreciate it.
course. And I hope we have you more. Well, folks, we're at near the end of our session. So unfortunately, we have to say goodbye. But tomorrow we have a session about customer success. And I hope that see most of y'all there. And if not, well, catch the replay when we post it on YouTube. So y'all have a good night, everybody, and we'll see y'all soon.